Chapter 27 Bestowal of Initiation and Grace. I bow down Sri Ganesh, I bow down Sri Saraswati, I bow down the Guru, I bow down the family Dinti, I bow down Sri Sita Ramchandra, I bow down Sri Sadguru Sainath. When a person takes refuge at the feet of the Sadguru, he gets the merit of bowing down to the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, as if in reality he is bowed down to Parabrahma and supreme heavenly bliss manifests. Taking the plunge into the ocean has the merit of bathing in all the tirthas, and sitting in the shadow of the Guru's feet is like attaining all the gods. Hail, hail to thee, Sai Sadguru, hail, hail to thee, the wish-fulfilling tree which grants absorption into the essence of Brahma. Hail, hail to thee, the ocean of self-knowledge, create in us respect for the story. May the devotees enjoy the nectar of your story as the Chatak bird savours the raindrops from the clouds. May all your devotees savour them and be happy always. Let the devotees, as they hear your pure story, break into perspiration all over their bodies, fill their eyes with tears of love, and have their breaths caught in their throats. Let the listeners and their families be overcome with emotion, have horripilation, and cry and sob often. Let their hospitalities and their differences hostilities and their differences, small and great, vanish. Let them realize that this is a sign of the grace of the Guru dawning upon them. The Guru's grace is not seen with the eyes, and it is inapprehensible through though the senses. No one except the Sadguru can grant it, and you will find no one else to do it in all the three worlds. Without unlimited love for the Guru's feet arising, desire and all the other six weaknesses in our character cannot be destroyed, and the eight sattvic emotions cannot arise in us. The Guru is most pleased when the devotee knows the self, and the more the devotee turns towards the attainment of the spiritual goal, the more the Guru is to be admired. The body, home, son and wife, eye and mind, these are fruitless toils and turmoils of human life. All this is monetary Maya, like the noon shadow. Let not the tangle of Maya be an obstacle. If this is the thought in your mind, then accomplish wholehearted surrender to Sai. Even those who are well versed in the Vedas have become helpless in bringing to an end the power of Maya. He alone will be saved who sees God in all creation. Blessed indeed was Chand Patil, who, leaving the Nizam regime, came to Nivasa, bringing along with him the Fakir Sai. The Fakir stayed there for 6 months to a year. Kama of Kannada village was made to stay there with him. So be it. Later he went to the famous Takali village, and taking Dadagu Tamboli with them, Kama and Baba, this group came to Shirdi from there. There are numerous holy places of pilgrimage here and there, but for Sai's devotees, Shirdi is the most holy. If by good luck this contact had not taken place, then how would this great fortune of association with him have come our way? This was the greatest fortune for us devotees. Those devotees who came and surrendered to attain their objectives, Sai showed them the right and virtuous path to ensure their well-being. Therefore, the listener should read over and over again the Satcharitra with full concentration. This is the best means of gaining Guru's grace. The story of Sai is pure and holy. In the last chapter, it was narrated that his person's faith was confirmed in his own Guru, and another was awakened with an indication of Akkalkot Swami. One man was prevented from committing suicide and given a new lease of life by a unique method. His death was determinedly and designedly averted. Now in this chapter it will be narrated how Sai, when pleased, granted his grace upon the devotees and made them prosperous and happy. His mode of teaching was marvelous and depended upon how and to whom it was given. It was full of wit and humor with light-hearted laughter. Listeners should hear it attentively. The many ways in which he taught have already been discussed in this book. Depending upon the capabilities, the path was shown. The doctor knows how to diagnose the disease and the effect of the medicine. The patient is ignorant and asks for some jaggery at first. The jaggery, though sweet, is harmful. The patient, however, becomes adamant and is not even prepared to take the small bowl of medicine in his hand till the jaggery is first put on his hand. The use of force on a sick person does not work. The doctor then devises a plan and gives first the jaggery and then the medicine, but achieves his objective. But he changes the antidote to negate the ill effect of jaggery. The given medicines have their effects similar were the methods of Baba. This was not the universal principle. His way of granting grace depended upon the qualification, nature, service, and love of the devotee. Baba's ways are unique. When he was pleased with anyone, he showered his grace under what circumstances it was done. If it occurs to him, he achieves the welfare of the devotees while casually joking and laughing, without anyone contemplating it. If the devotees desire casually to read some religious book, they placed the book in Baba's hands and received it back as prasad. Then, when that book was read, it would be most beneficial. It would achieve the highest welfare of the orators and the listeners, as it would be full of prasad. Some offered the pictures of the Dashyavatra, some the stotras of Dashyavatra, some the Pancharatni Gita, and other holy books and pictures. Das Kanu's Santalilamrit and Bhaktalilamrit, also Vivek Sidhu, were offered and Baba gave them to Shama. Shama, these books are for you, he would say. Keep them at home, properly protected. Shama bowed and obeyed the orders and kept them tied in a piece of cloth. With this thought, the devotees also brought books from shops to place in Baba's hands and to achieve them back as prasad. Though Baba's nature was kind and generous, to do this also needed courage. So they took Madhav Rao along with them to tackle the situation. At the appointed time, he would put the book in Baba's hands. Just as Baba knew the importance of the book, he also knew about the devotees' abilities. Sometimes when the devotees put a book in Baba's hands, Baba would leaf through the book. The devotees would put forward their hands to get the book back. But Baba did not give it back to them. He would hand it to Madhav Rao, saying, Shama, keep this with you. Let it be with you for the time being. Shama would specifically ask, shall I give it back to him who it belongs, as he has eagerly stretched out his hand for it? Even then he said, keep it. Once a devotee, Kaka Mahajani, who liked reading the Bhagavad, carried with him a copy of it and came to Shirdi. Madhav Rao came to meet him. He picked up the book to read it and went with it to the masjid. Baba casually asked him, Shama, what is this book in your hand? Shama told him about it. Baba took it in his hand and returned it after seeing it. The same book, the same copy, the same Nath Bhagavad was earlier given to Mahajani as prasad from Shri's hand. This book does not belong to me. It is Kaka Mahajani's. I borrowed it as I desired to read it. Shama clarified. Yet Baba said to him, the fact that I have given it to you, you keep it in your collection and tied in a piece of cloth. It will be of use to you. Be it so. After some time, Kaka came again to Shirdi and brought with him another copy of Bhagavad. He placed it in Baba's hands. It was given back as prasad. Preserve it well, Baba instructed. This alone will stand in good stead for you. Kaka was assured. This itself will prove most useful to you. Do not give it to anyone, certainly. He said this with a lot of solicitude. Kaka bowed with love. Baba himself had fulfilled all desires and was least interested in any article. What need did he have to collect, as he was divinity personified in his conduct? Who could know Baba's intentions? Reading and listening to this collection of books were a means of purification of his devotees. Now Shirdi had become a sacred place, and Baba's disciples would come from different and distant places and gather from time to time to celebrate, gain wisdom and praise the Lord in a series of sessions. These books would prove most useful. Then Shama would show them after taking them out from their wrappings. We will no longer be there, but these books will embody the knowledge. Whenever the devotees would read these very holy books, whether at Shirdi or else, they would recollect Baba and his teachings. This seems to be a reason for making the collection. Whether it be the Ramayana or the Bhagavad or any other book dealing with spiritual matters or reading the life story of Ram, Krishna, and others, it is only Sai who comes before the mind's eye. It seems as if Sai himself is playing the part of the great characters in these books, and the narrator and the listeners see Sai's image before them every time. According to the Shastras, if a book is offered to the Guru or given as a gift to a Brahmin, therein lies the welfare of the donor. Was this the simple purpose for which Baba had assigned the work to Shama with the words, "You take this book home and keep it protected, wrapped in cloth"? Just as Shama was an adorned devotee, so was Baba's love for him. A desire therefore arose in Baba to put him to some regular practice for his spiritual progress. So see what he did. Though Shama had no inclination, yet he was favored and graced. Listen under what circumstances it was done. One day in the masjid there was a Ramdasi Bua. It was his regular practice to read the Ramayana. Early morning, after doing his ablutions, taking his bath, and doing the Sandhya, after applying the scarred ashes and wearing the robes, he sat at a fixed place to read. He read the Vishnu Sahasranam and Adhyatma Ramayan. Thereafter, he read these books often and it continued with full faith. In this way, after quite a long time had passed and the portionate time for Madhavrao had come, something occurred to Sai Samartha. Listen to that story. Madhavrau's service had borne fruit. It was time now to put him into some regular practice and give him some prasad of the path of devotion so that he could get relief in worldly life. When Baba thought like this, he called the Ramdasi near him and said, I have a shooting pain in my stomach. It is as if the intestines are tearing apart. Go. This pain in the stomach is not abating. Quickly bring some Senapods. Unless I take some quantity, this vexing ache will not stop. The simple Ramdasi was a loving devotee. He put a mark in the book and set it aside. He went running to the market in obedience to Baba's command. No sooner had the Ramdasi come down the steps, see what Baba did. He got up from his seat immediately and went near the books. There, amongst other religious books, was the book on Vishnu Sahasranam. He picked it up, took it in his hands, and returned to his seat and said, Shama, you know this pothi. See, it is very beneficial. Therefore, I am giving it to you. You should read it. Once I suffered intensely. My heart began to palpitate. I was restless and I had no hope for myself. Shama, what can I tell you of that experience? How that book proved useful. This life was saved by it. I hugged it to my heart for a while and immediately felt relief. It seemed as if Allah Himself had come down and this life was saved by it. Therefore, Shama, take it with you. Read it gradually. Every day take 1 or 2 words. It will give you great joy. Shama said, I do not want it. The Ramdasi will be furious with me and he will say that I have behind his back done this wrong. As it is, he is half crazy, irascible, ill-tempered and ever complaining. Why unnecessarily pick up this quarrel with him? I do not want this annoyance. Besides the pothis in Sanskrit, my speech is crude and rustic. My tongue cannot twist around these joint words. I cannot pronounce them clearly. Seeing all Baba's action, Shama thought that Baba wanted to set him against the Ramdasi, but he had no idea of Baba's heartfelt concern for him. My Shama may be mad, but I am fond of him. He has an unusual affection towards me. I am greatly concerned about him. I will tie the necklace of Vishnu Sahasranam around his neck with my hands and free him from the miseries of the worldly existence by giving him a fondness for reciting it. God's name can break down mountains of sin. The Lord's name breaks the shackle of the body. God's name pulls out crores of ill diseases from their roots. God's name humbles the pride of death and ends the cycle of birth and death. I want Shama to be interested in this treasure of Sahasranam. Lord's name chanted with full intent is very effective, but even an unintentional pronouncement can be beneficial. Its power is manifested even when it is uttered unawares. For the purification of the inner self, there is not another simpler means than chanting the Lord's name. The Lord's name is the adornment of the tongue. The Lord's name sustains spirituality. It is not necessary to have a bath to say the Lord's name. Taking the Lord's name is not regulated by the rules of the Shastras. The Lord's name destroys all sins. The Lord's name is always pure. The continuous chanting of my name itself will ferry you across the ocean of existence. No other means necessary to achieve salvation. Whoever frequently repeats my name, his sins will be burnt. I consider him more virtuous than the virtuous constantly hums my name. This was Baba's inner motive and he acted accordingly. Even though Shama refused it, Baba slipped it into his pocket. Shama's ancestors must have indeed performed good deeds, the fruits of which he received in this blessing. This pure Shasnam was sure to remove his worldly afflictions. All other religious performances have to be done as per the rules laid down in the Shastras. The Lord's name can be chanted continuously at any time. It has no limitations on account of the day being a holiday or the time being the evening worship of Shiva. There is not another simple method to adopt. In the same way, Eknath forced the Sahasranam on his neighbor and thrust him on the virtuous path. Holy scriptures were read daily at Nath's house, but this neighbor, though a Brahmin, remained unclean and did not perform the sadhya. He indulged in evil actions. He never listened to the reading of the scriptures, as this wicked person did not even step in Nath's vada. Nath himself took pity on him and called him over to his house. Though he is born in a high caste, his life is being wasted. Knowing this sensitive issue, Nath felt great pity. How can this be averted? He thought. Therefore, even though he refused, Nath made him commit to the memory with proper enunciation the Shastranam, one shlok at a time, and thus uplifted him. The reading and study of the Sahasranam is a broad open way of purifying the mind and is of an ancient origin which was Baba's reason for forcing it on Shama. That Ramdasi returned soon bringing the Senapoth's medicine. Anna, who was a mischief maker like Narad, was standing near by and described in detail what had happened. Ramdasi was, as it is, ill-tempered. Moreover, there was Narad's intervention. Then who would be able to describe in apt words the uncommon incident? The Ramdasi was always doubting Thomas and he had a suspicious about Mother Rao. He said he made Baba the intermediary to snatch away my book. The Senapoths were forgotten. He launched a vicious verbal attack on Mother Rao. His violent anger was uncontrollable and he showered a lot of abusive language on him. The stomach ache was just a pretext. It was you who instigated, Baba. You had an eye on my book. I will not tolerate it. I am a fearless Ramdasi, as my name itself suggests. If you do not return the book without creating any problem, I will dash my head in front of you and scatter my blood profusely. You covered my book, planned out this insidious drama and putting the whole blame on Baba, kept yourself aloof. Madhavrao tried his best to make him understand, but the Ramdasi would not be pacified. Then listen to what Madhavrao said very calmly. Do not falsely accuse me of being deceitful. Why are you fusing so much about the book of yours? It is not a rarity. Is your book decorated with gold and studded with gems? If you don't have faith in Baba, despicable is your existence. Seeing the Ramdasi's insistence, Baba very sweetly said to him, Oh Ramdasi, what is the problem? Why are you unnecessarily distressed? Is not Shama a lad? Why do you quarrel loudly and vehemently, for no reason creating a scene? Why are you always ready to fight? Can you not speak soft and sweet words? Though you read these books regularly, your mind is still impure. Every day you read the Adhyatma Ramayana and recite the Sahasranam, yet you have not discarded your passions which are uncontrolled. And you call yourself a Ramdasi. What kind of a Ramdasi are you? You should be absolutely detached. But you are not able to overcome your intense desire to possess the book. What name can be given for this behavior? A true Ramdasi should have no attachment, but look at the young and old with equality. You are harboring enmity for the boy and coming to blows for this book. Go and sit in your place. Books can be had in plenty for money, but not men. till the end of time. Remember this well. Shama has no knowledge about the worth of your book. I picked it up on my own and gave it to him myself. You know the book by heart. I thought of giving it to Shama, who will read it, repeatedly recite it, and obtain the uttermost benefit. How captivating were the words, sweet and full of compassion, as also soothing and blissfully serene. They were non-parallel. Ramdasi realized the situation, yet he said to Madhav Rao, red with anger, instead of this book, I will take the Panchratni Gita from you. I am telling you clearly now. Madhav Rao was pleased and Ramdasi was pacified. Why one? I will give you 10 copies of the Gita instead. Be it so. The dispute was thus resolved. The Gita was accepted as security, but why did a man unacquainted with the divinity in the Gita demand it? One who constantly read the Adhyatma Rama in front of Sai, why should that Ramdasi be rude to Baba and quarrel right in front of him? How can I say that? Who should be blamed and why? If what had transpired had not taken place, how would the importance of the subject be brought home? The book which was the cause of such a big quarrel was also the revealer of Baba's pain. It is also now the cause of my well-being, invaluable Sai's gifts. If this great effort had not been made, Madhavrao would not have had faith in it. Truly, he would not have been able to pronounce the words nor be able to recite it. The Sainath, how loving he was! A rare teacher of spirituality with pranks. No one would understand how and when he would practice this art. His ways were incomprehensible. Later on, Shama's faith was developed. Dikshit and Nakve taught him to pronounce the words correctly by repeating and coming them over and over again to know their meanings. He learned the book by heart. Be it so. This conversation between Sai and Madhav Rao is a clarification of Baba's pure and simple advice. It is full of great joy. Undoubtedly, it was a pleasing entertainment. Similarly, Baba's greatly loved those who studied metaphysics. See how he showed that love when the opportunity arose. Once a parcel came for Jog at Shirdi post office. In order to receive it, he hurriedly went there. He found it to contain the contemporary on Lokmanya Tilak named Gita Rahasya. Carrying it under his arm, he came for the darshan to the masjid. Bowing down his head to pay obeisance, the parcel also fell down at Baba's feet. Baba asked then, Babu Sahib, what and whose is this? He opened the parcel in his presence and explained about the book. He placed the parcel in Baba's hands with the book, and Baba looked at it. Baba took it out from the parcel and held it in his hands, leaping through the pages. He took out 1 rupee from his pocket and placed it on the book with admiration. The book along with the rupee was handed over to Jog, and he said, read it from the beginning to the end. You will be benefited. There are innumerable such stories of Baba's grace, a grant of favor, but this book would be too lengthy. Therefore, I relate briefly and only a few. Once it so happened in Shirdi that Dada Sahib Kapade came and stayed with his whole family. He was steeped in Baba's love. Kapade was not an ordinary man. He was very learned and a person of a superior status. When he was near Sai, he stood with folded hands and with his head bowed down very low at Baba's feet. He was thoroughly versed in English language and was well known in the Council of State. He was an eloquent speaker, but before Sai he did not speak. Of the numerous devotees of Baba, there were none except Kapade, Nolkar and Bhoti who remained silent before him. The rest of them talked with Baba, and some even argued with him without the least fear and self-consciousness, but these 3 remained silent as if they had taken a vow. There was no question of their talking before Baba. They did not even raise their heads. Their humility cannot be described. They listened to him also meekly. Dada Sahib was able to expound Vidyaranyas Panchadashi to others, uttered not a single word as soon as he came to the masjid. The lustre of the Vedas, however bright it may be, loses its brilliance in the presence of pure Brahma. Sai was the embodiment of the brilliant Parabrahma, and learning is abashed before him. Kapade stayed for 4 months, but his wife stayed on for 7 months. Both of them experienced a new joy each day. His wife was very devout and had immense love for Sai. Every day she would bring Naivedya to the masjid with her own hands. Until Maharaj did not accept the Naivedya, the lady remained hungry. After he had eaten, she would eat, be it whatsoever. And an occasion arose for Baba, who was very loving to his devotees, to show an easy and pure path. Seeing the lady's instant faith, different saints have different ways. Baba's were absolutely novel. He granted grace of favors in playful, humorous manner, which left a firm impression. Once a lady brought a platter filled with sanza, shirapuri, bhat, varan, kheer, sanve, papad, kosambeer. As soon as his later platter came, Baba most eagerly got up from his seat, rolling up the sleeves of his kafni. He went and sat down at his usual place for eating, pulled the platter in front of him, took off the outer cover, and got ready to eat. Many other Naivedyas came far superior to this. Often they remained untouched. What was the greatly impolite reason to eat this only? Why should such a worldly attitude affect a saint? Madhav Raoji asked Sai Samartha, why should there be such a distinction? You keep aside all other platters. Even if some are made of silver, you hurl them far away. But only when this lady's platter came, you got up immediately and started eating. This is surprising. Why is her food so delicious, Deva? This is a great mystery to us. There is some stratagem of yours here. Why should you have such likes and dislikes? Baba said, what can I say about the surpassing quality of this food? In her earlier birth, this lady was very fat cow belonging to a merchant yielding much milk. Then she disappeared and took birth in the gardener's family. Later she was reborn in the Kashatriya family and got married to a merchant. Then she was born in Brahmin family. I saw her after a very long time. Let me take a few morsels of food she has offered with love, with contentment. After saying this, he did full justice to the meal, washed his hands and mouth, bleached to show his satisfaction, and resumed his seat. The lady did an obeisance and started gently pressing Sai's feet. Baba took the opportunity to give her some beneficial advice. While the lady pressed Baba's feet, he in turn pressed those hands which served him. Seeing this reciprocity of service between Deva and devotee, Shama joked about it. It is going on well, Deva. It is a pleasurable sight to see this reciprocal devotion. It is marvelous to behold. Considering her service, Baba was pleased with her and softly and her to keep on repeating Raja Ram, Raja Ram. Keep chanting this always, O mother. Your life's objective will be achieved, your mind will be at peace, and you will be immensely benefited. How potent were those words? They penetrated her heart and became embedded there, though these words Baba had intensely imparted Shaktipata. Such was the Sri Samartha, the compassionate Sainath, the protector of all those who have surrendered. He always fulfilled the devotees' cherished desires and works for their welfare. Whatever future I say, bear it in mind as it is spoken with great love, humility for the welfare of the listeners. I make this request because of our close bond. As an ant is addicted to the sweetness in the jaggery, even if its head is broken, you should be enjoyed to the feet of the Sai. He will protect you with uttermost care. The Guru and the devotee are not separate, though they appear different or distinct. He who attempts to separate them forcefully is born to be humiliated. Both are one and one cannot live without the other. If the Guru is imperfect, the disciple is the same. But for one who has learned at the hands of an able Guru, the very thought of duality does not exist. The Guru lives in one place and his disciple at another. He who likes it thus, then their relationship is only for appearance sake. If initially they are not two, how can they be separate? One cannot exist without the other. Both are so inseparable. There is no difference between Guru and the devotee. Thus they continuously gather together. The devotee placing his head on the Guru's feet is a gesture of worship and outward vision. The devotee is one with the Guru is in his one-pointed worship, and the Guru is in union with his devotee. If they are not completely one with one another in this way, then the relationship is not worth its name. How would one obtain food or clothing? Do not waste even a moment thinking over it. It all depends upon destiny and can be obtained without any effort. If you make effort to obtain them, they could be in vain. Make effort only to achieve spirituality. Strive for it day and night. Get up and rise. Why are you snoring in deep sleep? Such is the resounding cry of the Shruti, which lovingly wakes up the devotees. The root cause of all calamities is ignorance. Those who are rolling in the sleep of ignorance should wake up before it is too late and partake of the nectar of the knowledge from the Guru. Therefore, with great humility, go and surrender at the Guru's feet. He alone knows what is right and what is wrong. We are unknowing children. The Jiva individual is proud of its little knowledge. Shiva, God, who is all-knowing, is without ego. Only the Guru can reconcile the difference and show that they are one. Jiva is the Atma troubled by ignorance, while Shiva is the Atma troubled by Maya. Only the Samartha Guru is capable of eliminating the distinction between the two. Surrender the vacillating mind at Sai's feet, then he will be the doer of the action that arises by his inspiration. Similarly, surrender the initiative and the energy to act to Sai. Then behave according to his will. Know that Sai's power prevails everywhere, so leave all the burden on him, performing all your actions without pride. You will surely gain success. Should you even with a trace of pride think, I will do this, the consequences will become apparent immediately. They will be not a moment's delay. While Hemad was lazily turning and twisting from one side to the other in the sleep of illusion and fascination, he received the grace of God and Guru. It can only be ascribed up to destiny since no study nor efforts were made. God and Guru, it seems, bestowed this honor for their own design. Sai wanted his life story to be written for the upliftment of the devotees, therefore forcibly holding the hand, he got this book written in detail. Weaving a beautiful garland with a thread of constant meditation and different flowers of love and variegated hues, let us offer it to Sai. Let us attain the throne of self-realization and occupy it with splendor. Let us enjoy the heavenly bliss devoid of pride and be content within. This life story of Sai is unfathomable. The next story is more marvelous than this one. Become very attentive for a while to listen to this purifying tale. The next 3 chapters, Babado, the experience of visions, shows marvelous while he remained where he was. The first of these chapters deals with Lala Lakshmi Chand, who was drawn by a string of love and shown his proper place. About the lady from Burhanpur whose khichdi he wanted to eat and therefore made her long for the darshan and showed the marvel of love. And later how Megha was asked to draw a Triton in his dream and how he received the shivling unexpectedly afterwards. So many similar stories will follow after that. If the listeners hear them with devotion, they will be benefited. A soul dissolves in the ocean, so Hemad surrenders to Sai with feeling of oneness and union. He does obeisance to him wholeheartedly, who or moreover the lovingly pleads that he may think day and night of Sai and that nothing else may enter his mind, which should be always alert. May the past life be obliterated and the future be annihilated in this life. May he spend it at the Guru's feet. May there be well-being. This is the end of the 27th chapter of Sri Sai Samartha Satcharita, written by the devotee Hemad Pant, implied by the sane and virtuous people called bestowal of initiation and grace. This is offered to Sri Sadguru Sainath. May there be auspiciousness.